All right, if you guys are joining us late right now, because like it's been 5 minutes, it's because Dan won't shut up. So we're recording today. If we look at the schedule, today's lecture, the original lecture is building an HTML prototype using PHP, which basically was the lecture that I wrote up a long time ago that basically took this old design here and broke it into the PHP includes, and then used some conditional statements to do the "you are here" states. Okay, so for instance, if you're on services and you're on strategy, this is highlighted, this is highlighted, so on and so forth, right? It is still absolute. In other words, I would read through this lecture because in this lecture, then I do as well have a lot of links to, you know, what include functions are, what things like an if construct, comparison operator, so on and so forth. So I tried to write up that lecture, you know, to go through that kind of stuff. But since I've been teaching that class up at UW, then I wrote up this multiple pages. Oops, it's gonna not open it. No, it's fine. This multiple pages for your website lecture, which I'm actually going to take this and perform this demo and record that in class today. Okay, so where we go to faculty.washington.edu, so NKUM, right? If you take a look at this repository, if you want to call it a repository, it's just my server space up at the UW, where then you can see the, you know, the last, we're almost done with the class this year. So I've been doing that for quite a few years up there, where this multiple pages for your website then looks like any other website, right? That, yay, I click around on these navigation items and so on and so forth, and you can see it goes to about.php, services, portfolio, contact, etc. The sub-navigation items don't work, but when we are on a page like contact, then this stays yellow, right, to have the "you are here" state. So in this lecture series, then, I basically take this visual design for your web page, which if we go to what I downloaded earlier in the quarter, this 532 master, wait for it, right, where I have all of these. If you go to my GitHub, you go to HCD 532, then all of the lecture sizes, as I call them, step by step, are there. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go from the visual design one, which basically has just an index.html file that I used basically the build that I showed you guys last week in terms of header, navigation, content. So instead of middle, I use the ID of content, text, sidebar, footer, so on and so forth. So it's that same standard build that I use over and over again relatively successfully. So if we then go back to the root of the repository and go to multiple pages for your website, then this is where I have then taken index.html. I have saved it as template.html, right? So I have all of the raw code. In other words, let's say it like this. The thing that I forgot to explain to you last week, because I don't know, I'm blaming it on the fact that Lisa got nervous and forgot, but that's probably not the case. I was probably drinking too much whiskey in my office before class, right? So what I forgot to describe last week is the assignment, page templates and proto-site, okay? So for your page templates assignment, what I want you to do is, from your visual design studies, according to the structure that I drew up on the board and we talked about, has anybody looked at my HCD 532 stuff in terms of page layout, kind of inspected how, again, that's just the build that I've come up with over a series of years that is relatively similar in structure to other people's builds. I like to use IDs for my main elements, right? Some people like to use classes. Whatever style you guys adopt is whatever style you guys adopt, right? But again, one way, shape, or form. You will need to take your visual designs and you will need to complete your page templates in HTML standards for your home page and one main page. All templates must be responsive and work on both desktop and mobile platforms, okay? Meaning, when we talked about integrating a toggle navigation in there and how to make something responsive, right? Make sense? Okay. So we could look at it like this. If I go to WEB200.premiumDW, this is where for the WordPress class, anybody going to take the WordPress class with me next quarter? So here's what I'm going to do step by step along the way in the WordPress class. Once we get to actually building a theme, right? This is actually the templates that I should have started with, shouldn't I? Let's see. Yeah, because this one, let's see. I totally forgot about this one. Anyway, so this template for a main.html and a home.html, right? This is actually the thing that I should start with. Let's go and go back here and go to code. Don't mind me, I'm just going to talk along with you guys here. Clone or download. Let's download a zip. And so download the zip. Downloads. So many templates master. Move to documents folder. 170 master. Extract all. Extract.
Well, that's extracting a question.
Yeah.
You still want me to do this when I'm building a WordPress site?
No, you're exempt from the proto-site assignment as stated in WEB200. What you are going to do now, Dwayne, is you are going to do your templates, right? And so let me do this real quick. So Web1 templates master.
But I already started building out a test site.
Yeah, let me don't distract me while I'm trying to do stuff here for a second. So if I go to proto-site demo, if I select all that and delete, And I open this up and I select all and move. Great. Refresh. So let me push that. Then Jesus Christ, man, come on. Video, index, okay. That's what it is. Index.html. Edit, delete, yes. Home. I hear you guys back there, you know. Okay, so there we go. Okay, load. Great. Okay, so let's say this is then an example of, in this class, what would be considered my template assignment, right? Make sure that you put your templates in a folder called templates. Good job, right? Then when you're done with your templates, don't roll your eyes at me. When you're done with your templates, right, then duplicate that templates folder and rename it to prototypes and build from there, okay? So let's pretend that, hey, these are my templates that then I built out, right? And instead of then going from here to a WordPress site, right? So this is what Dwayne is going to do, right? How many of you know WordPress, have taken WordPress? Okay, if you have taken the WordPress class, you are required to build in WordPress. Or heavily encouraged. You don't have to, but you're heavily encouraged. Okay?
Yeah.
If you have not taken the WordPress class, what we are going to do then is we're going to build a modular PHP site, right? How many of you have done that in Web 120 already? How many of you are like, yeah, kind of, show me how to do that again? Yeah, Joss? Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do that again. So we are then going to go from, let's say, this template structure here to having all these pages with our include files. Okay, so what I am going to do then, I will upload to GitHub later on, but for now you can find it. I basically put earlier today between Web 105 then and WEB200, I came in and made this prototype demo folder, copied my templates from that other class, but then I forgot that I had these templates as responsive. And so what we're going to do is, if I then am here, right, and I have then my home.html, my main.html. In this case, I don't have to rename these as templates, right? I can just start to build out all of my include files and all my other pages. Wow. I wish they could make this part bigger here. Does anybody know how? No, but to make this, the font bigger? right? In other words, if I open up my main.html, I was able to quit. I don't want you to tell me more, Dreamweaver. Shut up. You're like my cat, following me around and racing me to the bathroom. For fuck's sake. So if we're here, then your template documents should be, wait for it, no PHP in your template documents. Do not use includes in your templates. Just build me out the home and main pages as HTML with the style sheet. Does that make sense? Right? And then break it into your includes for your proto-site assignment. Yes, Dan?
Is there a big content difference between your template and your proto-site? Or is it the same stuff, like photos, text, et cetera, all the same already in numbers together?
Let me answer that question like this. About main.html, lorem ipsum. Portfolio. Blog. Contact.
But what I guess what
Home.
I'm saying is, like, if you do the about page, right, you fully flesh it out in the template, the full content, right? So that's an issue.
I would use lorem ipsum while you're doing your templates, right? And even for your proto-site, use the real navigation item names and headline names, but for body copy beyond that, in other words, right, make this say about, but then the rest be lorem ipsum text. Make sense? Okay. But like I said, what I want you guys to do is to get these 2 pages, home and a main page, completely done, encapsulated, before you break things into includes and integrate PHP into it. Okay. So now that we have this, right, let's start breaking things into include files. Okay. So in my multiple pages for your website, lecture here, if you have not already created an external style sheet, right? If you're doing just 1 page, right? Typically, so if I look at then this on GitHub, if I'm just doing one, whoops, wrong one. One page as kind of a template, right? I will typically do my style sheet all encapsulated. You guys are going to have to be separated, aren't you? If I look at the projector one more time and the 2 of you guys are talking on my return looking at the class, you guys are going to be separated. Okay. So if, right, I'm doing 1 page, I will typically do an internal style sheet. If I'm doing multiple pages, I will make it as an external style sheet. Okay. So if you have not done so, right, this is where then, how many of you have made an external style sheet? Great. Okay. So we can skip that part, or skip me doing that part, because I already have, again, home and main, right? I have my internal style sheets right here, okay? Multiple pages, create external style sheets, create the template file, right? Again, if you were just working off of index.html, down the road, you are going to have a conflict once you make an index.php. Has anybody ever had an index.html and index.php file at the root of their server? Which one took precedence? .html, the HTML one wins, right? So what you want to do is name your templates. Again, this one, I just named template.html, right? So once I then went to make multiple pages, right? You can see that I kept that template.html file around for reference, just sitting on my server doing nothing. For what we're going to do today, Again, home.html, main.html. Home, you will notice if we are here, and if I load the roots of the URL, because it is named home.html, right? There are 3 file names that will kind of hook at the root of your domain, right? If you go to a folder, if home.html, default HTML, or index.html, or home.asp, PHP, default.php, ASP, etc. are there, the root of your domain will hook into that, right? As far as I know, if you have index.php, that will win versus home.html. Make sense? Great. We can then check off. So, right now I have a file at the root of my domain called home.html, or at the root of this folder. So when this folder loads, it loads home.html. If I had index.html in there, from what I understand, index will take precedent over home. Does that make sense? I may be wrong, but that's what I'm observing happening in the real world. I don't know where in the hierarchy it is, right? The typical page name that you use for the home page, root page of whatever folder is index. So I'm used to always using index versus default or home. Make sense? And so in the WordPress world, if you are then making a WordPress theme, right? Index.php is going to be your default file in your theme, okay? All right, so moving on, template file. Make sure you make your template files. Step 3, let's go ahead now and make the header and footer include files. Yeah. Here. Right. So in other words, for this exercise up at UW, we were working off of index.html. And then I renamed index.html template.html, right? So that basically what I'm saying is, here's the template that I was working from, right? So I didn't have index.html conflicting with index.php. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so from here then, let me draw something up on the board. Show my pens. So from here then, if we have a design where this is the design that I have going here, header, nav, and this one I believe instead of middle, I'm using contents. if you're going to use a footer. If this is the home page, then I have spotlights, widgets that has 1, 2, and 3 widgets in it. If I am on main or about, whatever other page, this is where I really need graph paper whiteboard. Header, nav, contents, text, sidebar, footer. So the object is then, is to use this to basically make about services, portfolio, contact, subpage, right? So from here then, if we notice, right, the only difference in this whole template system is the interior of the content, right? This being the page-specific information. You might have heard others refer to it as page-specific information. So if we then look at this, we can think to ourselves, from here to there was the same. From there to there was the same, right? So again, the idea is we want to, how many of you in Web 110, let's say, when you wrote out your navigation in multiple, you basically, in Web 110, correct me if I'm wrong, you have a series of HTML pages, correct? Mm-hmm. Did you use includes in Web 110?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. So you're supposed to in Web 110 just do HTML pages together. Okay? So let's say you had navigation items and you had 10 pages and you wanted to add or subtract a navigation item from your whole system. How many times would you have to go rewrite that navigation item? 10 different times, right? Because you would have 10 different files that navigation was written. So therefore, we can make this into header.php and footer.php. Now, once you convert things into PHP, you need a server that is running Apache. So, you can do one of two things. I'm using my DreamHost server, right? How many of you have ever run something like MAMP?
Unsuccessfully.
Okay. MAMP is then a program that will run an Apache MySQL environment for you on your laptop. So that's the environment that when you get into Web 2.10 and we're all working locally, right? You are going to use MAMP to then run PHP in MySQL, right? But for now, we need to start making our other pages. So if I look back at that drawing, notice where I went all the way down to. I should also put it on the other. And for those of you that are at home that are like, oh shit, it's drawing on a whiteboard. Again, I can't see it. I will upload this whiteboard drawing to Flickr that you can access, right? So here's what I want to do then. From home.html, I want to go all the way from the doctype.html oh, look at this. I did change it to middle here. God damn it. These names, right? Because I don't want to have this whiteboard drawing saying middle or content if it's actually middle. What happens when you do a lecture today? You go a little like, what's going on? So, where should I cut this off then? Should I go all the way down to here, here, or here? A, B, or C? B. Why?
Because that's where you're stopping. The opening of your div.
Opening of your div, right? Why not down to here?
You could give your div a different ID for your pages.
Okay, or you may need to, in those pages, write in a class or something here, okay? So for this, I think that's a good X, new. Now I'm going to say PHP file here, and it's going to give me all of this. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to paste that there. I'm going to save as in my folder here, right? New folder. Name it includes. Make sure you use all lowercase, right? Number one reason for, hey, Mike, why isn't this working up in my UW class is because they spelled images or includes with an uppercase I in one place and a lowercase I in another place. So get used to using all lowercase typically, okay? Includes, okay. Open that up. Footer.php. Save. Yes. Back to main.html. I actually shouldn't be cutting them because I want to leave main.html intact. I should have been copying, my bad. And I know you're confused for me busting you on copying and pasting, but you don't want to write this by hand over again. Right, Dwayne? Same thing, I am going to go up through the ending of the content div. Or the middle div. Copy. New. Creates. I already say don't show me that again once. Save. Footer.php. I don't like this about PCs, man. Why don't you show me the file extension? I don't like that. Yeah, but they should do that by default, man. I've told you guys I hate PCs, right? I hate them with a passion. I hate them with passion. So I've got my footer and header includes. Oh, Jesus Christ, man. Come on. Has anybody else been using Dreamweaver on these machines? They've got it fucked up on these things, right? All right. For my main HTML then, I can then save this as, at the root, about.php, save. And again, I want to get rid of everything from there. To there, right? And this is where now I should have three pieces of the puzzle. If we load the about page, if and when I put the includes in, or the calls, right? How much do you guys know about PHP? Not enough? PHP is awesome. I love PHP. No, it's not. JavaScript is complicated. Let's talk about syntax for PHP. PHP. I see you guys. Opening PHP script tag. Closing PHP script tag. Okay? We are now going to use, notice it turned green, so it's black, it turned green here. So I am going to then use, forget that, actually go back to under if we go back to the multiple pages, nope, the under WEB200, trying to show you where the links are on my pages to building an HTML proto-site using PHP. Come down here, come down here. Code once and include them, okay? So we want to use the include statement or the include function, whatever you want to call it. So in PHP, there are basically PHP written functions and then user-defined functions, okay? PHP, or the include function, is a PHP-defined function versus, let's say, if I were to look at something on GitHub here where I went to my Students of Premium Design Works. So Delvicio, once you get into writing PHP functions in WordPress, right? In other words, just like in JavaScript, you know how you can use the function keyword to then write a user-defined function that then has conditional statements and whatnot in it, right? Okay, so same thing in PHP, right? But here we are using, like I said, a PHP written function, and we're going to pass a string through this, right? So this function then uses parentheses operators and passes a string value through it, okay? So the value that, or an argument, right? String value is an argument, and we are then going to look into includes for header.php. So the value then is includes slash header.php. Save. Go down to the end, same thing. Caret, question mark, PHP, closing question mark, closing caret. And it's typical, how many of you have been writing any kind of programming languages, right? it's typical, get used to, it might kind of start to be uncomfortable. Get used to writing opening, closing, and then going inside of it and writing whatever, right? Even if it's brackets, if it's curly brackets, if it's square brackets, if it is the parentheses operators, write them in tandem like that, okay? Include parentheses operators, go back. Why am I using single quotes instead of double quotes? Huh?
It does matter.
Oh, it fucking matters.
It matters, I'm trying to remember why. Because double quotes are past strings. No, this is passing a string. It's passing a
You can pass a string with double quotes,
Yeah.
but why do I want to use single quotes here?
It doesn't get confused with HTML.
Doesn't get confused with the double quotes in HTML.
Yeah.
Sherrod, you need to repent for your sins over there. Okay. So, what? Well, what you can do, you can always use the backslash for escapement, right? But when you are writing PHP, right, and you are passing HTML through your PHP like this, right? That's where you want to open up a string value with a single quote, have then a double quote here so that you don't have to open up a double quote, use a backslash, right? So you're writing them in opening and closing pairs, right? And then when you are using the, you guys know what concatenation means? Okay, so for instance, if I am writing a statement where I'm echoing then a string value and I'm writing HTML, but then in this HTML, I need to stop, right? So I close the string, I open the string over here and I close the string over there. But if I need to then grab some kind of something that I've declared as a variable, right? So here is where in this for each loop, I am saying main pages as main. So basically main pages here equals this in the WordPress world, don't worry about it. And I need to go get the ID for that page. So what I'm doing is, right, writing a class that says page dash item and I want to get the ID number. So therefore then I concatenate, I close the string, then I open up or I concatenate. In JavaScript, what symbol do you use for concatenation? Plus sign. In PHP, you use the period, right? So period, call the variable, right? And the property of, in this case, the variable refers to an object, the ID refers to, does everybody know what this means, the arrow like this? Right? Huh? Means property of, like a book has a title, a book has an ISBN number, this page has an ID number that I'm trying to get. Does that make sense? So this is a property of that object, okay? And then you close concatenation, open back up the string value. Make sense? Okay, but in what we're doing, right, we're just going again here and saying, let's look into the includes folder for footer.php, save. And again, if you are using PHP in your files, you have to append the file name with .php. If you have a PHP script in your .html files, it no working. I don't know how else to say that. It just doesn't work, right? Did Chris just get pissed off at me or something? Have you had enough? Okay, so save that. So now I have my about.php, my footer, my header, right? I now need to then, so I'm going to open up home.html. I am going to save this as, and it's going to take a while. There you go. Index.php. Save. Same thing. I'm going to get rid of everything from the doc type through the middle div tag. Here's what I don't want to sit up in front of class and talk to you guys anymore. All I want to do is sit in my box and code, right? That's all I want to do all day long, right? So include parentheses, go back, single quotes, includes folder for header.php. Don't forget your semicolon. Let's see if I forgot it. I forget it a lot. Forgot it down there. How many of you have ever had something not work and you've hunted and you've hunted and you've hunted and it was a goddamn missing semicolon?
Yeah.
Ah. Yeah?
It also doesn't work if you make the PHP TGP. That also doesn't work. It blows up.
What about NC17P? Never mind. Moving on. That was, yeah, bad, Mike. I'm sorry, Kristen. That was so unintentional. After it came out, I was like, oh, bad dog. Dad, you saw that coming and you didn't warn me. Count on you, Del Vecchio. What? I know. Include. See, write the semicolon there. After you do that, that's a good way. Single quotes includes. Whoops. Footer.php. Save. All right, so now I have about, I have index, I have still my main and my home intact. I've got my footer and my header includes. And I save. And we go and we view. Protosite demo. And it looks like nothing happened. But when I go to about, oh, it's still pointing to main.html. That's not what I want. Let's go fix our navigation. So for right now, I have my navigation file inside the header file. Should I leave it there? Six to one, half a dozen to the other, right? But because I am going to be writing some PHP conditional syntax in my navigation file, and I'm going to use a variable that looks at the URL, right? And I don't want to have variable scope trip me up. Is anybody following me on variable scope? Okay, variable scope. Right here, I've had to say global post because this variable or the what equals post is outside of this function. So I'm saying global, this then goes and looks outside of the function for the value of post. In other words, the post variable is defined way down deep in the caverns of WordPress, right? So variable scope means that if I set a variable inside this function, it relates to only inside this function. That's variable scope. Does that make sense? Okay. So what I'm going to do then is I am going to take this navigation create a new file, save it as in my includes as navigation.php and leave it there. Okay. I'm going to go back to header and same thing. I can put one include file inside of another include file. What's the path I want to do here? Do I need to adjust anything because I'm inside another file? In other words, I'm inside the header.php file. Should I be able to say includes navigation or just say navigation? Nope. Why? Right.
When you try to access a page that's not inside, it's going to get lost and not find the nav.
When it's compiled at the root, right? In other words, maybe I'm full of shit, but from what I remember, let's go back here. Go to the, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to say includes because because when this file loads, right, and it gets put together as the piece of the puzzle, it's all at the root. It's no longer in the includes folder, meaning when about.php loads, it goes and grabs this file and pieces it together. It then, in other words, if I'm here, right, at about.php, if we view source, you don't see any of the include files, right? It has, the server has compiled it all at the root level of prototype demo W17. So if that's the case, I still need to go and query inside to the includes folder. Does that make sense? Ish. It's the same kind of thing as if you have a style sheet, right, embedded into another folder. When it loads, now style sheet is a little different. I forget I said that, right? I always put my styles at the root. I don't put it in a separate folder because of the issue, right? Of having to go look through, right? So basically then for this, in header, I want to say includes navigation.php. Okay. So now if I go back to here and refresh, it's all loading as one file, right? Again, if I have view source and I refresh, it's still there, but my links are wrong. Don't forget to change that to index.php on your logo. And if I go into navigation, about.php, portfolio, portfolio.php, blog.php, contacts.php. I want to say. So if I go here, now I should have a working if I were to have put everything up to the server. Let's synchronize. Selected, preview. I'm going to spell something. Portfolio, blog, contacts. Oh, I haven't made my files yet. That's why. Did I tell you it's my third lecture of the day? Right? So from here then, on about, I am going to change this headline to about, so I know that's the page I'm on. I am going to save as. Portfolio.php. Save. I'm going to get rid of that image. I don't need it there. And I'm going to change this headline to portfolio. Save that. I can save portfolio as. So this is a way you can then chop things up and save things as to then put the correct content into your files, right? Blog.php, blog, save as, contact.php, save, contact. And now let me go grab something really quick. We're not going to have time for me to write it out by hand, but I do on my GitHub under HCD 532. If you look under 2017, contact 2. If I have time, I'll go through this script with you guys. But I am going to... So, on my multiple pages, I do have this contact form for your website, right? Where I go through how to make a contact form. I actually modified the script this time around. So here's the old one. Here's the new one. The old one did concatenation kind of weird, where it opened up things with a parentheses operator, double quote. And has anybody ever seen concatenation with curly braces? So I modified it to this one where if we look at it really quick, if the submit button is clicked, recipient, an email address, message, go get the message field, the value of message, subject, go get the subject from the select menu, mail sender, from, concatenate, email, go get the email field. Come on. Oh, Dreamweaver is running really super slow. Recipient, subject, message, sender, print to the screen, your email has been sent, hey name, etc. Again, that's not really important to get to right now, but what I want to get to is, I might be able to get to that. Now we have our, let's make sure that we synchronize everything. No synchronization necessary? No. So I should now have a fully working proto site, index.php, about.php, portfolio, blog, contact, as a contact form in it. But still, these things are not highlighted up there. So we need to write a PHP, use a PHP script and some CSS. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Well, let's say it like this. Did redoing those includes and seeing how you chop it up and kind of save it along, does that help anybody? Right? Yes? Okay. Here's what we want to do. We want to have, when I am on, let's say, the portfolio page, if I roll over it, okay, if I go to my styles, navigation, ooh, look at that, I've already written it there. So navigation, my regular state is white. My hover state is gold, right? I want, when we are on that page, for it to stay gold. So what I can do is, I can say any list item with a class of current, stay gold. So in other words, if I go to the faculty, Washington EDU, Syncom, and if I'm on portfolio here, it stays yellow because if I inspect it, this list item has a class of current in it. Does everybody see that? If I click on services, now the services list item has a class of current in it. So basically what we need to do is say, if we're on the services page, write the class of current into the list item for services. If we're on the portfolio page, write the class of current into the list item for portfolio.
Where's that code again?
Huh?
Where's that code?
I haven't written it yet. Well, today I haven't written it. So let's write it, shall we? Here's what we want to do. We want to start out in navigation.php, and we want to say, oh my God, you're killing me. We can open up a PHP script. We can have as many PHP scripts as we want to on any given page. We can even open PHP scripts, not finish them, close them, write some HTML, and open up the PHP script that will continue, right? Remember we did that in WordPress, right? Page. Equals. So in PHP, when you were declaring a variable, you use the $sign. How do you declare a variable in JavaScript? Var. You don't even have to use var, it still works. But what does one equal sign say? Yeah. One equal sign says equals. Two equal signs says is equal to, it compares. So this defines page as something. This would compare page to something, right? What about three? Huh?
Isn't that an explicit comparison operator? in
Correct.
PHP?
Explicit. In other words, the number 2 and the word spelled out 2 can be construed as the same in certain instances. The number 2 is a numerical value. The word 2 is a string value. So 3 equal signs compares the difference between data types, between a string value and or a numerical value. We want to say here, page equals. And we want to go back to my lecture for reference. That I've closed. And we want to look for base name. We want to use the base name function here. Okay. Long and the short of base name is base name can look for different things, but base name looks for a path or a file system component. We want to look for, are we on portfolio.php? If so, write current. Are we on blog.php? If so, write current. What? Close. Base name. And hold on, let me make sure that I have the right syntax. Yep, that's what I thought. Still using the parentheses operators. So I'm going to use the base name function. Did I spell it right? Base name. Okay. I'm going to use the super global server. And I am going to, in straight brackets, or regular brackets, right? Base name, server script name. So I'm using the base name function. I'm opening up then parentheses operators. So what's in these parentheses operators? See how I'm quizzing you guys on the pieces to PHP? What am I passing through the parentheses operators? Am I passing through the parentheses operators? What am I passing? An argument. What's the difference between an argument and a parameter? If, well, let's say the base name has different parameters that you can pass through it. The argument that I'm passing through as a parameter, right? In other words, the parameter is the shoebox. The argument is the shoe you put in the box. It's the best way I can explain it. It's kind of stupid, I know. I can come up with a better analogy.
I know the answer. You want me to answer it, or-
Sure.
Okay. Server is the server name and the path. And then script name is the path of DCS, is the name of DCS.
No, I'm just talking what's the difference between argument and parameter.
Oh, okay.
In other words, if I am, let me show it to you like this. Because people get confused on what's the difference between an argument and a parameter, right? Y'all with me? Who even knows what I'm talking about? Spengler. Spengler is listening. So therefore, I'm going to continue. So if I look at some old stuff of mine that doesn't work anymore, but my old school shit. Seriously, my old school shit. And if I go to scripts and I want to look at sliding menu, okay? And I go to premium, EW, and somebody remind me to get this working, because I've been trying to remember to get it working for a long time. But let's say back in the day when I taught career strategies way super long time ago, and I had this site right here. Oh, I showed you this when we were doing the toggle, right? We were talking about the toggle menu last week when you guys didn't show up.
No, this is here for it. It didn't work.
This didn't work.
Right.
I need to get it to work. But let's go back and just say that that's what we're talking about.
I mean, clearly we were here because we knew it didn't work.
Oh my God. Moving on. See how when I get defeated, I just pretend nothing happened and I move on. Yeah, exactly. So in other words, so if I'm trying to open example links, I want to pass the argument of example links through the sliding menu function. So if I look at the sliding menu function, the parameter is object ID. Okay, so that's when you are defining it. It is a parameter you are defining. If you then have an ID on that page that you want to access with the sliding menu function, you pass that ID through that function as an argument. Does that make sense? No? That's what it is. I'm wasting my time on Dan Frey right now. Spengler, did that make any sense to you?
It makes sense to me. We can move on.
Okay. I fucking hate you guys. Who's ever watching at home right now and who's not here, be glad that you didn't show up because I'd hate you. So I want to then use the super global server to look for script name. Okay, smarty pants, what does the brackets mean here? Yeah, quizzing you.
So the server is an array of values that's the key.
Ha ha, you said an array. Right, so the brackets mean go get a value out of an array, right? So just like when you see 0 in brackets or numbers in brackets, right? In the case of this contact form here, where we're getting message, subject, email, right? Once this contact form is filled out and pushed as post data, then we have the values for message, for subject, for email, for name that then are stored as post data in an array. Does that make sense? So then this goes and gets the post data and the value for whatever you passed as the subject through the array. Does that make sense? Okay. Is anybody learning anything today? Okay. Did you just go like this, Calvin?
I've been learning the entire coding,
so now what I've done is server script name goes and looks for the value of, is this the blog page? So it looks for this value right there, the file name at the end of a URL structure, okay? Or the file name of wherever we are within this folder or whatever. So therefore, what I need to do is say, in this list item, and be careful here, because we are going to be running a class through this opening list item. Spacing is crucial, right? Meaning, I don't want to start my PHP tag like this, because there's no space here. What I want to do is I want to say if page is equal to about dot PHP do something, right? You all know how conditional statements work? Okay. If condition is true, do something. Echo. Class. Current. We don't need an else. Else nothing. Else don't. If else is null, you don't need an else. Does that make sense? Okay. I mean, I appreciate the question, but you know. And spacing here. So therefore then, because I've previously written in my style sheet, LI class of current A, use gold, so now all of them filled out with the value of whatever page. What if you have subpages though?
We also have to put that into subpages.
Right, so in other words, if right, so let's say I had a subpage for logos. I'm not going to make the navigation item over here for it, but if I go here and I say logos, or not? Jesus Christ, Dreamweaver. It's like Dreamweaver has a 30-minute delay on it or something. No. I'm going to have to send off something. Hopefully my server didn't crash. Jesus Christ. Time to shift gears then. Let's go to the file from here, right? So if I wanted on any one of these subpages that I'm here on to have this highlighted then in the PHP, so if we go to the code for this one, right? And I go to includes navigation. Really? Do you? Oh, fuck. GitHub doesn't like my old code for some reason.
That motion goes away if you go to raw.
Oh, interesting.
Something trivious, but
Yeah, but it used to work. I don't know what happened, right? So in other words, if I had subpages, I would have to then say, did this totally crash? Come on. Why are you orange and blinking at me? I just want things to work at this school. It's not too much to ask, is it, Spengler? Oh, wrong. Too many tabs open. Great. So portfolio logos isn't highlighted, right? So now if I have this open, my navigation, I would then have to say, right? Double pipes, what does it mean? Or, not impressed, are you, Dan? What? Really? Oh my God, dude, what is wrong with you? Yeah, once you get into PHP though, man, I don't know, maybe, I don't know. It gets addictive. Like I said, I don't want to talk to you bastards. I just want to sit in my box and code. Right? So now that's, right? So let's say you want to have these highlighted over here as well on your subpages. If you look at the code from this lecture, this old one, one thing good about this lecture then is in my includes, I have a sidebar.php, which this doesn't give me those errors. I can use the same conditional syntax, right? I can write a submenu all in one file. So what? You hate it, right? So basically what's going on here is if the page, again, I'm using base name server script name, right, is not equal to index. In other words, if we're not on the home page, write out the markup for subnavigation. This right here then is where, take a look here. This is where I can open up a PHP script, close the PHP script to write out HTML. I don't need to use echo statements, right? That's also, from what I understand, called escaping HTML, right?
yeah.
So it's one way to do it, right? So then write out the HTML for subnavigation. If then the page is equal to any one of the about sections, for the headline, print about. Headline, services, work, etc. Again, it's the long way to walk here, but if, like, Delvicio, you were saying you want to be better at programming, right? The other day. Weren't we, or was that Liz that I was talking to? It was Liz, wasn't it? Okay. So how I got a lot better at programming was I started off walking the long road and then slowly but surely was able to shorten it up and shorten it up and shorten it up, right? So it might be kind of inefficient to say, if page is equal to about, or page about mission, blah, 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 right? You could use some switch statements in there that might be a little bit better, right? But it helped me get a really nice understanding of how this works. Then, if, so close that, right? So that'll write the headline. Then open up a list item and close your PHP, for those of you punks at home that aren't here, talking to you, Al. I'm not forgetting about you either, Caitlin. I know you're not here, right? Right, yeah. Everybody's looking to where you usually sit, Caitlin, you're not here. Right, so then you open up the UL tag, right? Again, if page is equal to about or any of the about things, write out the sub-navigation, right? Mission, process, team. And then same thing in those list items. If page is about dash mission, print. Here's where I was using print class sub on instead of echo class current. But it's the same exact thing, just kind of embedded in itself. Does that make sense? So anyway, those of you that are having a hard time wrapping your head around the program, why are you smiling? Why is it? Because I was ripping on Caitlin or something? Like, is my fly open or something? What's going on? You guys look at me and smile and laugh a lot, I've noticed, when I'm not making jokes. And I do feel like, what, do I have like a button undone the wrong way or something? Or like, did I accidentally write a piece of poop on my forehead with a pen or something? Right? You didn't miss anything. Don't worry. Good.
You're smiling because you're learning.
Okay, good.
You shouldn't be sad.
Good. No, that's great. That's good. I'm just paranoid. Right? But this is really, so I wrote this a long time ago, right? And this really helped me get the conditional logic stuff down so that I really started understanding, oh shit, you're right. It is just a set of instructions. That's all it is. One step at a time, one little instruction at a time. Yeah, you can then take longer instructions and trim them down, right? For instance, if we look back at this one here for titles, right? Oh, son of a bitch. Caitlin, are you printing, Caitlin? Right? So here, what I did is, if the page is indexed, print home. If the page is about, print about, right? Etc. And if you look at then header, and it gives you that weird, I don't know what the hell that is, right? No, not history, raw. Must be something with the reverting, right? Where I used an include here for just the one piece of my title. So anywhere I was in the title, right? So that's really rudimentary. Rudimentary, right? And then you can slowly but surely switch to doing stuff like, have any of you ever used switch statements? Yeah. So a shorter way of doing it would be switch page. So you set up, you set up your variable. Is page equal to index? Well, if it is, then print out home. If it is equal to about, write about, so on and so forth, right? So it's a little shorter way of doing it. But yeah, just that's where I started way back when. It was just the cornerstone of PHP programming, conditional statements like that, right? And I'll push you guys in the WordPress class, right? Because then basically you should be able to, hold on, Bella, you should be able to, at the end of the WordPress class, be comfortable in saying, well, if we're on the front page get that piece of information. Else, if we're in regular pages or the single postings, write that in. For everything else, write this. If the post has a parent, do this, right? This is not very far away from that rudimentary what I was just showing you, right? And then it'll get more, this looks daunting, but it's really not once you start piecemealing it together like that, right? Bella.
Is that the same logic we follow for, let's say we have a content site,
Yeah.
and we want to put the sidebar in
Yeah.
content. So it's like this, switch thing.
Could be. You know, I mean, if you want the content in here to change without the page refreshing, that's JavaScript. Because without the page refreshing, you need client-side scripting versus server-side scripting. So PHP is all based off of, I click on something, it refreshes the page and queries the server again, right? Versus if I'm on the page and JavaScript is loaded, or AJAX or something, right? Asynchronous JavaScript, that doesn't have to reload the page again. It just shows and hides stuff. Very similar, but what you're talking about is very similar to the toggle stuff. I click on this, it shows this. I click on that, it hides the other things and shows this, right? Does that make sense?
So say you wanted to make something like that for your sidebar, except you wanted it to update it every time there was like a new story, right? And it just cycles these out as new stories go out, right?
That's when you need to start getting into a framework like WordPress that is super robust, that then what you're doing is you didn't build the framework, you're just using programming to pull, in other words, in WordPress, everything is a post object. Every last everything, every image, every page, every single posting, every custom post type, everything is a post object. So post objects then have, everything has properties. So there's not any post object you can't reach into. Like I said, you can go to any place in the library, and for any number of a book, right, their Dewey Decimal System, that book has a title, an author, an ISBN number. So there's not, for any numbered query, you can't go in and pull the title, author, and whatever, or the title, the content, the permalink, the so on and so forth. So that's where then what you're talking about is, yeah, I mean, you could basically develop your own content management system, which is a very daunting task, or use something like WordPress that then to do that kind of thing, right, would be something like, so let's say here, let's look in my functions file for get child pages. So this is a good one right here. Okay, so for get child pages. So if we are looking at my business site, then anytime I go to a gateway page, these change, right? And these change. That's kind of essentially what you're talking about, right? So what it's happening is I'm saying in the loop, in the typical go into the WordPress database and look for whatever ID you're on, right? Meaning, if we're on the portfolio page right here, this page, if we view page source, is page 186. So for page 186, get the post ID for the, so query posts for children of that ID. And for those children, being the subpages, get the permalink, the link to it, the ID, the title, and the excerpt. Write out the ID, the permalink, the title, the excerpt, the permalink. Does that make sense to you? Right, so WordPress as a framework has set up everything as a post object, right? Everything has an ID. Every image, every posting, everything has an ID. So for whatever ID you're looking into the database for, you can then say, well, does that ID have children? If it does, get me the children and get me the link to it and its ID, its title, and its excerpt. Does that make sense? Yeah. Have you taken the WordPress? You haven't taken the WordPress. Yeah, take it. You'll just be like, holy shit, I can rule the world now. Right? How many of you have built your own content management system? I got paid a lot to do it. Wouldn't do it again. WordPress powers 25% of the internet, right? So if you know basic programming, like conditional statements, loops, arrays, etc., there's not anything you can't get out of WordPress or write to the database in WordPress, right? So instead of using a shitload of plugins, you can start writing your own functions, right? So, and I think, wasn't I encouraged, I wasn't talking to you about WordPress functions? If anybody listens to me, I mean, do you have a question? Write my own, build my own content management system? We're beyond the day, in other words, WordPress is so powerful and so adopted that only if you're like Amazon.com or Target or Walmart do you need to build your own system, right? For basic client brochureware functionality, like my website, using WordPress, I mean, you're basically getting this big, huge system, this big, powerful engine for free that you can then dig into and work with, right? I mean, it's the power behind it. Why don't I want to build my own? Have you met people? I'd much rather show up here and go, look what I do. You can do it too. I get paid to do this, Kristen, and this. I get paid a lot of money to do that. It's a pretty good job. It's pretty sweet. But I do want to sit in my box and code, not for somebody, for my own, right? And that's where I've used my own websites as projects to just code and code and code and code, right? All right, so anyway, that's how you build your prototype. So for your prototypes, you have to use includes, and you have to do the "you are here" state for your main navigation items. Okay? And so, who else isn't here tonight? Al. Now, Al had to work, so he has an excuse. He had to work. Caitlin doesn't have any excuse. She knows that I'm going to be recording stuff, so she can sit at home. Who else isn't here? Come on, you guys, start snitching on each other. Yeah. Yeah, those are the only ones that are really missing. I know who's not here. Anyway, Caitlin, you have no excuse.